Hello Internet, Seth Skorikowski. Today we'll be checking out the stylized tabletop role-playing game Pirate Borg. Written by Luke Stratton and published by Limithron, the game is compatible with Mort Borg using that distinct Mort Borg style. The book is a 166-page digest-sized hardback. It's thick, heavyweight paper, but one thing that I love about it is that the inside cover holds all the rules to the game for just quick and easy reference right there. And I wish more games did this. It's the most brilliantly simple thing that a tabletop role-playing game can do to just allow game masters to use the book quickly and easily in-game. I've gotten to play Pirate Borg a couple times, once with Professor Dungeon Master over at Dungeon Craft, and most recently I got to play it with the creator Luke Stratton and the Limithron crew at Gamehole Con. And my face is a little red in this picture because we incorporated shots of rum into it, so I was having a very good time.
And I'm Jack the NPC, or Bilgebones Jack as the random pirate name generator calls me. I'm here to drink grog, find treasure, kill skeletons, and smoke the bones, which is great because that is exactly what Pirate Borg is all about.
So that's what we're going to be talking about today, starting with, what is Pirate Borg? Well, Pirate Borg is a game about grog-swilling pirates, undead galleons, arcane treasures and ancient temples, tentacled sea monsters, and high seas adventure. The players don't just play pirates, but over-the-top pirates with rotted teeth and peg legs and eye patches, likely cursed, who are just as likely to use a ship's anchor as their primary weapon as they would be to use a cutlass.
Basically, it's one pot comedy, one pot horror, but all pirate adventure. Kind of like that first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Now, speaking of movies, the book lists several sources of inspiration for it. However, I noticed that list does not include Cutthroat Island, the greatest pirate movie of all time, which is a serious mark against this list.
We're the only two people on Earth that love that movie, and one of us is imaginary. The game is set in the world of the Dark Caribbean, which has recently come under the influence of the Scourge. As monsters emerged from the depths, the dead rose from their graves, dark magic awoke, and madness consumed all as the end times began.
Now, Pirate Borg ain't about stopping that or saving the world. Now, that ship has already sailed. Pirate Borg is about riding that wave of the apocalypse as long and as hard as you can, all the way down to Davy Jones's locker.
The book gives us sort of a build-your-own timeline as to how these events unfold, the game starting about halfway through, and then every column growing steadily and steadily more unnaturally grim, until finally the islands crumble into the sea and the apocalypse arrives, and the game masters are instructed to cast this book into the sea. Now, of course, it wasn't too long into this apocalypse before some wretch had the bright idea of smoking or snorting some of these undead remains, like you do, and found it awesome, and the ash market was born. Ash is a prized commodity here. The effects can range from pretty awesome to horrifically terrible, but they are always interesting. Personally, I think a character should be able to add their spirit stat as a modifier to this D20 roll to encourage players to maybe take that gamble into trying some ash out. The book gives us a brief look at the factions or populations that the characters are going to be interacting with. Of course, there are pirates, which our characters belong to, then the British, French, and Spanish colonial empires, and then the wretched, the supernatural creatures and horrors invading the world and the cultists who worship them. They're all cool 2-page spreads, but only have about 2 paragraphs dedicated to each faction. And so if you want more territories or information about them, you're going to have to look them up. Just get down a Wikipedia hole to know exactly where all these different factions were. I also wish that the indigenous natives had been included as a 6th faction. The book makes a point that the game is about focusing on the stylized, fantastical universe of playing pirates and not the ugliness and real history, but I feel that they could have done that without avoiding the indigenous population altogether. Characters. Pirate Borg uses character classes, offering us 8 in total. We get the Brute, the Rapscallion, which uses playing cards to play them, the Buccaneer, the Swashbuckler, the Zealot, which, that's our priests and cultists, and the Sorcerer, our Spellcaster, which there's only 6 standard spells, and each of those has 3 ranks of proficiency. So these are the 6 standard classes. Then we have 2 optional classes, the Haunted Soul, which is our cursed, possessed, or undead characters, like playing a zombie pirate, and finally the mythical, such as merfolk or animal hybrids, like somebody with a crab claw or an octopus tentacle instead of an arm, or even a sentient animal. Yeah, you could play this game as a talking rat or monkey or parrot, which is, kind of funny to think about, but, would come along with its own difficulties, such as, not having any fingers. Players can choose which type of character they want, or simply roll a die, d6 for the standard classes, or a d8 if the game master is okay with using the optional expanded classes. We also roll our character's background, which determines their starting funds, distinct flaws such as they're way too loud or lazy or sadistic, physical trademark like a peg leg or they're infested with bugs or increasingly gangrenous, idiosyncrasies such as they're constantly smoking and coughing or they just talk to themselves all the time, unfortunate incidents such as you betrayed your previous crew or you're tormented by a ghost, and things of importance, which might be valuable or worthless junk that your character cherishes. Character sheets are very simple, single page, and walk us through the whole process of character creation. We start by rolling one piece of cheap gear, one piece of fancy gear, and how big of a gear container that we have. Ability scores, which there are 5 of, we roll 3d6, but we only note the modifiers, such as rolling a 14 strength, we only note that it gives us a +1 modifier for strength checks because +1 is actually what our strength score is. We then roll or choose whatever our class is, see how the effects of our stats are, what die we use for hit points, roll which spells or special class abilities we have, then fill in the details and background information and we are all set. I really appreciate that it lists the page numbers with every section. It's such a simple but useful thing. We also get this more stylized character sheet that we can use if we want. All in all, a new and unique character can be rolled up in just a few short minutes.
Which is really handy in a game where survival is far from guaranteed. So you can have your new character just emerge out of the faceless crew and get found tied up in the next room and get back into the adventure in no time at all.
Character advancement occurs whenever a game master feels it's appropriate, maybe after a significant accomplishment or the completion of some larger quest. Advancing characters roll a d6 versus each of their stats. If that d6 comes up as equal to or more than their current stat is, that stat increases by 1. However, if that d6 result is below their current stat, that stat goes down by 1.
Which if your stats are pretty low, or maybe even negative, chances are they're going to be going up once you advance in level. However, if your stats are pretty high, let's say 4 or more, there's a pretty good chance they're going to be going down.
Characters also gain 1d6 maximum hit points, they gain 1 more of their class feature abilities, and then they roll to see if they gain any significant treasure. The game mechanics for Pirate Borg are pretty simple, and they just require a single standard set of polyhedral dice. So looking at our abilities, which once again there are 5 of, each is used for different actions. Now real quick, you'll notice that agility, which is our dexterity, is used for defense, while presence is used for range attacks. And I really dig that they separated those two out, so we don't have the classic problem of dexterity kind of becoming the super stat that does everything. They split those up to where each stat is equally useful. Anyway, our ability scores are ranged anywhere from -3 to +6. Whenever we want to perform an action, the Game Master sets the task difficulty, which ranges from easy at 6 to nigh impossible at 18, and 12 is considered to be kind of a normal average for any difficulty. The player rolls a 20-sided die, adds or subtracts the appropriate ability score as their modifier, and if the total comes to the difficulty rating or higher, they succeed. Congratulations! Such as, if I wanted to swim across a river, but because that river has a strong current, the Game Master rates that as difficulty being a DR 14. Now, swimming is performed with our agility, and we'll say that I have a +2 in that. So I roll a d20, add 2, and if that comes to 14 or more, I succeed. One thing that players can use to their advantage is the Devil's Luck. Now, depending on their class, they can have anywhere from 1 to 4 points of Devil's Luck. Now, with it, they can do several things, including reducing a difficulty test by 4 points, re-rolling any die roll, reducing damage, or regaining d6 hit points. Devil's Luck resets once it hits 0, but after a rest, and the players just need to re-roll what their luck is and how much they recover. So you don't get the same amount after a rest, you just get another chance to roll the die to see how much Devil's Luck you have. Now let's talk about combat. Combat rounds last 6 seconds. We can roll initiative individually or as a group. What makes it interesting is first, the Game Master doesn't roll to hit. Instead, whenever it's the bad guy's turn, the Game Master simply announces who the bad guy is attacking and the player rolls their defense to see if they avoided the attack. Rolling a natural 20 is a critical success and comes with a few benefits. A natural 1 is a fumble and inflicts more dire consequences. The next interesting thing about combat is that instead of armor soaking a set number of damage points, each type of armor has a die value, ranging from D2 being light armor up to D6, which is your heavy plate or conquistador armor. So if a character is hit, they roll their armor die to determine how much damage was stopped by their armor, and any damage that gets through just goes straight to their hit points. If you hit 0 hit points, your character is broken, and we get to roll to see what that means. Maybe your character is knocked unconscious, maybe we're maimed, maybe we're just killed outright. However, if you're taken below 0 hit points, well, it was nice knowing you.
Now, you don't get too many hit points in Pirate Borg, and 1 or 2 hits will take you down fast. Now, thankfully, it don't take too long to roll up a new character.
The combat section is one of those portions of the book where I feel that the minimalist rules and the lack of examples works as a detriment, especially when it comes to stuff like, the bad guys not rolling to hit the player characters. I believe that if I was simply trying to learn the rules by reading the rule book and not playing this at a con where somebody could talk me through it or maybe watching any example videos online, I would have missed that portion as well as some other portions of the game. So I wish we had more examples that were given in the book just to make sure that everything was clear with any game masters that are reading this and wanting to learn the rules from the book. Magic is another interesting area. While zealots and sorcerers may cast certain spells that's allowed by their class, they don't have to roll to succeed on those. But there's also arcane rituals. Now these can be cast by any character class outside from brutes. They don't get to do this. Now this is more of ceremonial or deeper magic, and they do require a roll to succeed them. If you pass the test, then the ritual works, and that's great. But if you fail this roll, then you have to roll on the magical mishaps. Now these can be light or they can be unforgiving. And if you roll the same mishap twice, your body dissolves into seawater. So yeah, try not to fail a ritual spell. There's also ancient relics that we might encounter during our adventure or during character creation or advancement. We've got the usual suspects here: pages from the Necronomicon, the Cup of a Carpenter, Jack Sparrow's magic compass, crystal skull, and a Cthulhu idol.
Yeah, but there's no Maltese Falcon, which I am deducting 2 stars for that offense right there. Which would probably mean something if we use stars in our reviews, but it's the thought that counts.
There are also sea shanties, which are kind of like spells, but where the whole crew sings a shanty that one of the characters knows. And if the roll succeeds, it benefits the crew in some way. I'm personally surprised that there's no bonus if the players actually sing the song around the gaming table, but I can only assume it's because the authors heard how terribly I sing and they just wanted to spare the rest of the world that. Naval Combat is very interesting. Unlike the rest of the game, Naval Combat is more akin to a tactical war game with hex-based movement and fields of fire, even the effects of wind. Instead of individual actions, we have crew actions for the whole ship, and combat rounds will take 30 seconds instead of 6. And then once the ship pulls up alongside another one, they drop anchor, we return to regular individual combat from that point forward. The book gives us a pretty healthy selection of ships and their stats, ranging from tiny rafts up to giant warships. Even supernatural ships and stationary fortifications our heroes might have to face off against or defend. I'm honestly really impressed with the naval combat rules in this game. My only concern is while smaller groups, if they have a large enough ship, they can use their presence stat to affect one of the ship's actions and all the players can be involved. But with larger groups of players, or if you just have a group that's got a very small ship, until they enter close combat with another ship, those players might just be observers and kind of watching the game rather than playing the game. There is a whole lot more that this book offers. Stats for monsters and bad guys, tools to determine random cargo pillage, craft derelict ships and uncharted islands, create rumors and quests. There is a whole bunch that they managed to cram in here. We even have a sample adventure, The Curse of Skeleton Point, which is a 32-page location sandbox with various hooks and rumors and several location maps and a cast of characters. It's pretty impressive for a sample introductory adventure, and I would love to show all the maps and everything from it, but Spoilers. Overall, Pirate Borg has really impressed me. I'm amazed how much they managed to cram into such a small book, and again, I love the fact that the inside cover has all the rules and everything printed right there for ease of reference in-game. A player that's got zero experience in this game can very quickly and very easily roll up a character and get right into playing. The rules are simple, but it makes it a very good, casual beer and pretzels sort of game, and it's designed for that, and I feel that it works great as that. While the rules are simple, the Morborg styling with the radically changing fonts and colors and crooked and sideways text is extremely difficult for me to read and forces me to have to search every single page to find what all it is that I'm missing. With things like every character class being laid out completely differently than one another, I find it difficult to navigate those pages quickly and, find it something that I can talk another player through. If they're trying to search a page, trying to find something, I can't just remember where they should look because every page is differently. And yeah, well, other Morborg games are completely unreadable to me because they just went so over the top with it. Pirate Borg is a lot better. I am capable of reading it. I just don't care for that style at all. It just makes my ADHD flare up. That all said, Pirate Borg isn't something that I ever see myself using as our primary RPG. Maybe as a side game or a brief 1 to 3 shot palate cleanse between larger campaigns and other games, but never going to be anything more than that. It's just simply not my style to run and use as our primary game. Now, it is a very popular game. Their recent expansion Kickstarter, Down Among the Dead, raised over $620,000. Luke ran us through the adventure Into the Maelstrom, which is part of the Kickstarter for that. It was pretty much Ravenloft on a ship. It's what he promised, and that's what it delivered. And then once that is available and that's been released, I hope to review that adventure some point in the future. And Limithron has a massively active Discord with lots of patron-exclusive content, so there isn't any shortage of resources for anyone who really wants to dive into Pirate Borg with both feet. So if this sounds like the game for you, whether as a long-term game or just kind of a low-commitment casual RPG, Pirate Borg is definitely worth checking out.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some more of our stuff, such as game reviews or how-tos, just hit that subscribe button. If you want to support Seth's channel, consider picking up one of his books and novels, and who knows, maybe you'll even like it. Till next time, me hearties, you have a great day. That entire sort of talk like a pirate, yar, sort of pseudo-Cornish brogue that everybody uses, that is entirely based off of Robert Newton's performance of Long John Silver in the old Disney's Treasure Island. Man, I love that movie as a kid. I must have seen that thing like 70 times. Now, if you ever want a real horror story, though, check out what happened to that actor that played Jim Hawkins, Bobby Driscoll. Man, that's a real heartbreaker.